Today we're going to be looking and wondering how powerful the restricted vintage cards are. Are they really so powerful? Well, if they've been restricted in vintage, maybe I guess they are. But let's start. We're going to continue with Lion's Eye Diamond, a 0 mana artifact, which at the time was considered complete scrap nonsense. Sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond, discard your hand. That doesn't sound good now, does it? To add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. I believe at the time, I didn't play at the time, but word on the street is that people were just basically throwing this thing away. I don't even know how you used it back then. Like, this card started to get much more powerful as you could use cards in your graveyard. I mean, the whole concept of flashback, that made this card broken. I mean, you dump your hand and you can just play your flashback cards with Lion's Eye Diamond. This was the this is balanced, right? Isn't that funny? Balanced Black Lotus. Balanced so much that it was worthless. But then over time, it was just as powerful. It's just as powerful. If you want to play with Black Lotus and Legacy, you can play with 4 Lion's Eye Diamonds. So this is now restricted in Vintage, along with actual Black Lotus. Benovsky says, it's 1 with nothing plus Lotus, so powerful. Turn 1 Lion's Eye Diamond. Then you play your, well, yeah. You're saying 1 with nothing is combined. Yeah, the power of 1 with nothing and plus the utility of Black Lotus, all in a Lion's Eye Diamond. Let's not forget, Benovsky, that we haven't even discovered the power of 1 with nothing yet. We don't use it with anything. It is 1 with nothing in Magic the Gathering, that's for sure. Okay, Lord Trevor says, this card is bonkers. It's not only for dredge mechanics. No, I mean, it's mostly for storm mechanics, right? And a lot of people talk about dredge. Dredge, overall, doesn't care for these types of cards. Mostly off of the reason. I mean, I can't speak for Vintage, but I can sort of speak for Legacy. They prefer stuff like Faithless Looting, Careful Study, or just some means of drawing cards. Because if you go turn 1 Lion's Eye Diamond, well, you got no hand. Then you're just drawing off the top of your deck to enable the dredge, right? This card was like 50 cents when it came out. That would have been the absolute best investment of all time, because by today's standards, about $434. Beanpot, I guess everyone can show their age when they remember how worthless this card was. Beanpot's like, I remember when this card was trash. I would love to hear the history lesson to Lion's Eye Diamond. Upon what day did it actually start getting good? And then there were Storm cards. Because, of course, Storm loves cards like this. I mean, it's just like, it's a mana source for your flashback Past in Flames, but on top of that, it's just like a free spell you don't have to spend any mana on to enable your storm count. Good with Echo of Eons. Yeah, I forgot about that one. It's an absolute beating with Echo of Eons. Let's get that on screen. Echo of Eons. We always heard Time Twister was power 9. Well, budget Time Twister is Echo of Eons. It's 6 mana, or for flashback, it's 3 mana. It does the same thing as Time Twister. Shove your hand and graveyard into the library and draw 7 cards. So you just go turn 1 Lion's Eye Diamond, crack it, go Echo of Eons, and boom, you got a whole new hand going for you. I mean, you can do more stuff than that. Like, you just empty your hand of artifacts and lands, plus play Lion's Eye Diamond, and then get your Echo of Eons on. I don't know if that is a combo that's enabled in Vintage. I don't know the metagame that well enough. But the question is it powerful enough to be restricted? How powerful is this card? It is busted. Okay, it's busted. It danger. All right, it's basically Black Lotus. Small downside by today's standards, but still Black Lotus for the decks that it can be played in. Some Storm players be like, oh, you have to build your deck around it. It's fair. Lion's Eye, you can't ramp out Phyrexian Negator with this thing. Can't ramp out, whatever. You can't ramp out anything by creature standards, but by combo standards, it's broken. It's absolutely broken. All right, let's move on to our next card on the list. We got Lodestone Golem. This is hilarious. Lodestone Lodestone Golem. A card in a long line of cards that annoy people. 4 mana, 5/3 Golem. Non-artifact spells cost 1 more to cast. That's very funny. Again, it's non-artifacts. This is vintage. This is the land of the artifacts. The Moxen, the Black Lotus, the Lotus Petal. Why would people even care about this card? Why is this such a big deal? Did this piss off the Storm players or something? Like, who is it really taxing? It's actually a really fair card. I have to look. This shouldn't be restricted. I gotta look this up, actually. Lodestone Golem is restricted. Okay. It was restricted on April 4th, 2016. Get that, everyone. It's been a hot minute. It's almost been a decade, Lodestone Golem. What did you do? What did you do to deserve this? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you see no play in any other format. You're jank. Absolute jank nonsense. But apparently so powerful you had to be restricted in vintage. Okay, let's take a look at Lodestone Golem. We continue to see the imbalanced meta. In particular, the Mishra's Workshop-based decks continue to be significantly overrepresented, reducing the competitive metagame. Well, this issue could have been solved by restricting the namesake card. Yes! Okay, they're saying, like, the Mishra's Workshop deck. Here's Mishra's Workshop. A land that adds 3 colorless mana in your mana pool. Black Lotus for artifacts. Repeatable Black Lotus for artifacts. You can tap this every single turn. They're like, we could restrict that card. If possible, we would like to keep the deck at a competitive level, but played to an extent that the format is more diverse overall. So Lodestone Golem leads to some less interactive games. We're hoping that limiting workshop decks to 1 copy of the card leaves the deck at an appropriate strength. For that reason, Lodestone Golem is restricted. What an absolute baloney explanation for this. They just came out and said, okay, yeah, Mishra's Workshop's the problem. But you know what? That's sort of an expensive card people like to play. So F it, we're gonna restrict Lodestone Golem. Lodestone Golem is crap, really. Thorn of Amethyst also restricted. Insane. Just restrict Mishra's Workshop. Since when is taxing broken strategies so bad? Now, I understand, you know, non-artifact spells cost 1 more. If you're only in artifacts, this has got to be a huge pain. You can go like turn 1 land, Black Lotus into Lodestone Golem. I mean, I wouldn't like it either, to be honest. I wouldn't like that in any format, and it's possible in this format. But like, how many combinations of like Mishra's Workshop into Lodestone Golem are there when there's only 1 Mishra's Workshop in the deck? Jess says, I'm restricted in vintage. Oh, because you're poor? I thought you were going to say, I'm restricted in vintage because you're only a one-of-a-kind. That sounds like such a corny line to tell some girl. You know what? You know what, babe? You're restricted in vintage because you're one of a kind. That'll totally get you the girls. Yeah, check out my Riz, everyone. My MTG Skibbity Riz. That's the corniest thing I've said all year. There's still time left in this year, though. There's still time left in this year. Yeah, the card is totally fair. It does almost nothing in every single other format. Is it? I mean, I will admit it's a little bit more powerful in Vintage, given the fact that you can ramp this thing up. But it's basically Thalia. Like, is Thalia so wrong? Although Thalia is like everyone is affected by it. Lodestone Golem is like, all right, you're affected, not me. I'm the artifact deck. I play artifacts, and they're busted and broken. No, but like objectively speaking, is the card broken? No. It's a tax effect on a creature. Yeah, we've never seen that before. Never happened. Never seen it. I never heard of it. I've never saw such a card ever see play in every format. No, I've never seen it. Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy. No, it never happened. I'm just having some fun over here. Okay, so anyway, this card is unreasonably fair. Lotus Petal. The very funny. I always found that this is a very funny card to restrict. It's a 0 mana. It's a treasure, effectively. 0 mana artifact. I don't doubt that it's probably broken in some deck. Just ramping out even your Lodestone Golem probably has utility, right? It's just you tap, sacrifice, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. What gets me is that we know everyone hates treasures. But that's all this is. Treasures are just Lotus Petals. So we got this restricted in Vintage. And I'll admit, I think it's a very strong card. It's a strong card even. I believe it's isn't it not a Pauper League? Yeah, it's a Pauper legal card, which is really weird. Just shows how powerful Pauper is. Very strong for Affinity. I don't know if there is Affinity in Vintage. The Poor Man's Mox. Poor man's Black Lotus. This was the next stage to trying to fix the Black Lotus. All right, 0 mana for 3 mana. Maybe that's broken. How about 0 mana for 1? Is that fine? Is that okay? Well, is that too much value? It's a treasure you can get back, probably for 0 mana, an infinite number of times. Tell me more about that Shadow Walker. No, I don't doubt you. Between Yawgmoth, what's the Yawgmoth card? Well, Underworld Breach. Yawgmoth's Will is what I was thinking about. I was thinking about Yawgmoth's Will. So there's a lot of ways of recurring your Lotus Petals in a combo deck. Amazing card in Legacy. Oh yeah, super amazing card in Legacy. It's basically the Birds of Paradise of artifact decks. Except anybody can play it. You get only 1 shot. 1 shot, that's it. I also hated Lotus Petal. They didn't have too many in the initiative deck, but getting those 4 mana initiative cards out, oh god, that was an absolute pain. Not to mention, this was also a contributing factor to getting White Plume Adventurer banned, because you go turn 1 like turn 1 Ancient Tomb into your Lotus Petal and play a 3-drop on turn 1 with Initiative. That was awful. Lotus Petal is one of the rare $20 commons. Very, very expensive common. Works great with Urza Saga. You can say that about any artifact. Grafdigger's Cage. Works great. Great with Urza Saga. Any artifact out there. Oh, are you telling me like turn 1 Urza Saga, turn 2 land Lotus Petal, and like activate Urza Saga, then pay with the Lotus Petal? Does that work? What does the interaction with Emery work? Well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. Grant, honestly, I'm gonna be on I'm gonna say it's still on the weak side. Like, you can play the full 4 in Legacy, and it's like fine. You can play the full 4 in Pauper. Be very curious how this would work in Modern, because obviously Mox Opal, that was broken. But maybe if you had like just 0. Oh no, we had Simian Spirit Guide. Okay, screw it. No, but Simian Spirit. Yeah, it would get banned. Still get banned. It would be too much for Modern. We had a Lotus Petal. It's called Simian Spirit Guide. This is basically better than that. What's the artifact that makes artifacts indestructible, like Nivindral's Bev's Disc combo? I have no idea. I'm not familiar. $27 to $36 sounds somewhat affordable for a petal. Careful. Simian Spirit Guide is harder to interact with. That is true. So you can't Collector Oof or Null Rod the Simian Spirit Guide. Lotus Petal. You can even go Chalice on 0 to lock out a Lotus Petal. Alright, I'm gonna say this card is okay. This is not the most broken card. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's a good card. Everyone loves Lotus Petal, but it's not broken, especially for the power level of this kind of format. Okay, Mana Crypt. I'm not gonna spend that much time on this damn card. The literal zero. I mean, it just got banned in Commander. They hardly ban anything in that format, especially for power level. you know a card is broken when it gets banned in Commander for power level, because I thought like anything went in that format. The 0-mana artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, flip a coin. If you lose the flip, Mana Crypt deals 3 damage to you and tap to add double colorless. This is literally insane. This is literally the only form. Vintage is the only format you can play Mana Crypt. Mana is good. Free mana is better. Yeah, everyone loves free mana, especially when you're the one that's playing with it. Lotus petals were like $1 for 20 years. Wow, inflation. Go from $1 to $20. Or what is it? No, it's like $18. Oh no, sorry, we're talking about Mana Crypt. I'm looking at the Mana Crypt thing. Mana Crypt is $18. Sorry, no, $81. Sell your Mana Crypts. As of November 7th, 2024, Mana Crypt, after being banned in one of the most popular formats on the face of the earth, is $81 US. I highly suggest you sell it for that price. Not financial advice, so don't get upset at me if Wizards actually unbans this thing. But the fact that it's still going for a good chunk of change, well, technically being rendered useless in the most popular format on the face of the earth is beyond me. What about Canadian Highlander? I don't know that community very well. Mana Crypt is broken. It has no place in Magic. The 3 damage line means nothing. Well, don't say it means nothing. I think in 20 card Magic. Hey, look, I played a little Vintage. I've died to my own Mana Crypt before. All right, it happens. Step 1, you have a bit. The thing with Vintage, the way the games play out, it's weird. You would think it is a misconception that Vintage is like a turn 2 format, because the average seems to go way longer than that. Now, in theory, the game could be over in 2 turns. If I have a big, powerful hand and you got Squadouche, yeah, the game's going to be over. But usually what happens in Vintage is I got a big, powerful hand, but you got a big, powerful hand to sort of even out my big, powerful hand. So if I go turn 1 Mana Crypt, and then I just spew out my entire hand, and then you neutralize it, this Mana Crypt is actually a liability, dealing 3 damage to me every single turn. And then before I know it, you go, it's weird, you go go in Vintage all the time. Draw Black Lotus, pass. Draw land, pass. And you both are just drawing garbage, or you're drawing like Mental Misstep or something, reaction cards. Each side is waiting for some action. So in a 20 life game, Mana Crypt deals, you can die to this thing. Nikachu, the games in your no ban list video are longer than most Vintage games I've seen. Exactly. So with great power comes great, really long games. Weirdly enough. I don't know. Yeah, it's just strange. If you play with enough power, it's actually quite fair. I played a paper Vintage event 2 weekends ago. Had a match that I won on the last of extra turns. See, that's how... Unless you guys had the longest 3-turn games of all time, where you spent like 10 minutes, 10 minutes a move. I've seen Mana Crypt kill more hosts than give wins. Well, I wouldn't go that far. That's going a little extreme. If no coin flip and always 3 damage, it's good. No, that's terrible. Well, anyway, yeah, so you're on average getting 1.3 damage a turn. Is it broken? It's broken. Yes, it is too powerful. It's so powerful, it definitely deserves to be restricted. Moving on, with Mana Crypt, we have got Mana Vault. Colorless Black Lotus. Let's get a real Mana Vault. No, I want a real Mana Vault. There we go. Okay, I'll take a 30th anniversary Mana Vault. We got Proxy Mana Vault over here. Official Proxy Mana Vault. 1 mana artifact. It doesn't untap during your untap step. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 4. If you do, untap Mana Vault. At the beginning of your draw step, if Mana Vault is tapped, it deals a whole 1 damage to you. You can tap to add 3 colorless mana. So Black Lotus, sorry, not Black Lotus. Dark Ritual is not the most insane card in the world. So I don't know why Mana Vault would be nearly as bad, except it does add to your artifact count if necessary. You can sacrifice it to tinker. You can... What else can you do with this funny thing? Mana Vault, Animox, Lodestone Golem. There you go. That's the combo. That is the restricted combo. Yeah, I want to play one game all night. That's why I waste a tank of gas and my hard-earned money. How does the square plug the round hole? I think it's more of a... it doesn't plug anything. I don't think that's its job. I think it's trying to float away, frankly. I think the mana is pushing it out. I don't even know what the square thing is there for. We have to ask Mark Tedden what's going on here. I don't think they got a whole lot of art direction back then. It's very Doom-like to me. Was not a huge fan of Doom, but I can respect that Mark borrowed a lot of... probably borrowed some art style from it. That's right, it goes right into the round hole. Yeah, instead of the triangle going into the square hole, we got the square going into the round hole. Mana Crypt was kind of the first secret lair card because it was first printed as a promo in a book. No, I guess you could call it that. I just prefer to just call it, like, I don't know, a box topper or something like that, even though there was no box. It's a vault for catching all the mana that leaks out of this hole. Well, it's doing a pretty bad job of it. What kind of plug is that? They got these chains here, chains holding it back. Okay, but let's talk seriously about this. I don't know why this is restricted. I'm assuming the artifact decks just find that this thing is broken because it is still a... okay, so it's not exactly Black Lotus because I forgot about the interaction with Manifold Key or Voltaic Key. So you can go like Mana Vault, tap for mana, Voltaic Key, untap your Mana Vault. So you get like a ton more mana than expected. And on all future turns, you're basically adding 5 mana a turn. Or I guess that's not exactly right. You could store it up, save it. You can get up to 5 mana in one turn if you saved it up. It's kind of Black Lotus if you can't untap it. So yeah, sort of. Shouldn't a vault be secure? Someone, Beanpot, asking the real questions out here. There's always the broken artifact with doesn't untap unless you pay. Yeah, sure, I will pay it and not untap by other means. Yeah, we can always untap these damn things. Now, it can't... The balanced part of this card... Balance, people, balance. Is that you can't use it to pay any color pips on cards. So if you're heavy on color, then it's pretty much useless. That being said, in the artifact decks, it's definitely broken. The mana is too strong. It enables other artifact strategies. Basically, if you put in an artifact deck, and also combo decks that just need a lot of mana to some degree, it is there for you. I mean, like, you don't need to splash black for Black Lotus, effectively. You can just splash this in any color deck that you could possibly need. Clock of Omens was played alongside Mana Vaults? Really? Clock of Omens. Are we talking way back in the day? 4 mana. Tap to untap artifacts. You control untap target artifact. Oh, that's interesting. So you can tap the Clock of Omens to untap your Mana Vault. Ooh, that's tech out there right there. Too powerful. Too powerful. All right, moving on. We go from Mana Vault, Memory Jar. I'm not going to lie. I haven't seen this card in action a whole lot because it's basically banned anywhere I want to play it. When I play Commander, no one's really played it against me. I guess the effectiveness of this card comes with having multiples in your deck. I believe this card was banned super fast when it came out in Standard. The 5-mana artifact, tap, sack it. Each player sets aside their hand face down and draws 7 cards. At end of turn, each player discards their hand and returns their other hand. And then returns their hand each card they set aside this way. Restricted at 5 mana, I guess the Mox and break it. Well, it's basically any cheap stuff. So the idea is you play Memory Jar, you crack it, and the idea is, I believe the idea is you get a free 7 cards, but your opponent doesn't, because you're gonna draw 7 cards, and ideally it's just something you can spew and puke out back onto the battlefield, and then your opponent, ideally, they use up the cards in their hand, but they don't, because at end of turn you're gonna you're gonna lose that hand and bring back your old hand back to your hand. So you go Memory Jar, crack it, draw a bunch of artifacts, cheap spells, play them onto the battlefield. You know, play out like 5 out of 7 of the cards that you just drew. And then your opponent probably has to keep their entire 7 cards in hand and they don't do anything with it. And then you lose the hand and you go back to your other the original hand that you had in the first place. I know there's a combo with this because it's part of the combo winter bands, but I can't remember what combo it is. You're talking about the time spiral combo. Yeah, your opponent can only play instants. So you can play lands, you can play sorceries, you can also play instants, you can play creatures, artifacts, enchantments, but your opponent only gets to play with 1 card type when Memory Jar goes off. Can you do something with Mishra's Workshop with this? Yeah, you can cast this with Mishra's Workshop. Mishra's Workshop casts artifacts. 3 mana every turn. It was a combo win with the enchantment Megrim, really. In Commander, 3 mana enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a card, Megrim deals 2 damage to that player. Oh, did this discard cards? And every turn, each player discards their hand. Oh, that's a beating. Okay, you discard cards. You take damage. Approximately 2 damage. 2 damage to that player for each card dumped. Henrik's like, I'm a blue player, so I don't see how this is a downside. Well, even myself as a blue player, I don't really want people to play Memory Jar versus me. I only got so many Force of Wills. Like, this isn't going to work out so well. Lotus Petal. Okay, it resolves. Lion's Eye Diamond. Force of Will. And then they, like, just spew out the rest of their hand anyway. Ooh, Narset. That would be an absolute beating.
No, God, please, no.
Is it played in current workshop decks? I don't know. I would assume so, but I cannot verify that. I would assume that it's being played in Storm decks or any sort of like the combo like decks. I don't know. I don't know what the Storm decks are called these days. I've played against a few of them. But anyway, the combo like decks that will try to like either grape shot you or brain freeze you at it before they kill you off. Shops is either coveted jewel or aggro shops. We got good. It's a good thing we have a vintage player in the house. Narset way too clunky and slow. Well, probably. You know what? If this card was legal in Legacy, probably they would play with Narset. That would probably be a thing. Beanpot is like Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, Dark Ritual, Mox Diamond. LED allows the player to tutor Jar with Tinker. Then you'd use Yawgmoth's Will to recur Jar and kill the opponent with Megrim. Wow. There we go. That's a combo. A combo you could even have in Commander. Okay, I'm going to assume, since Memory Jar barely got to see the light of day in any format, it's broken. That is my assumption. This card is just a it's just as broken as the art is. The art itself is broken. That's how strong. Mental Misstep. Interesting. What to say about this card? You know, it's weird that this is restricted in Vintage, since this is like a pretty prime good card to use in Vintage. If there was a format where Mental Misstep was made for, it's probably this one. 1 Phyrexian blue, instant. Counter target spell with converted mana cost 1. Pretty wild to me that this is restricted. I guess it just homogenized a lot of decks. Because why would you not play with Mental Misstep if you could not play with 4? Christopher B, 7 minutes behind. I believe Sewers of Stark was the first secret lair card by that metric. I don't know what the first secret lair is. Okay, we're going to talk more about Mental Misstep and how powerful these restricted cards are in Vintage. But we got to thank our sponsor today, FusionGamingOnline.com. They're back and better than ever. You want to buy singles from old card games? We got Pokemon. We got Magic the Gathering, Flesh and Blood. What do we got? We got Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lorcana, Altered. We got Altered, One Piece, and Star Wars. Star Wars is back? When did that happen? Isn't that owned by Disney? What's the point of... Hold on. Whoa. What's the point of having Star Wars and Lorcan at the same time? Or I guess they didn't want to jam Star Wars cards in the Lorcana universe. I get it. And also, you can pre-order Magic the Gathering Foundations, the singles, that's setting up the foundation to the new standard, Pioneer Modern, and all Commander decks. Get your singles. They have all been spoiled. Feast on them at FusionGamingOnline.com. And if you want to support the channel, because I know you love this channel, I love it too, and that's why I use coupon code Nikachu at checkout to get 5% off all my purchases. We're also going to thank Mana Traders, the premier place to rent Magic cards online. Digitally play Magic online. You live in the middle of nowhere? You got no local game store? Well, guess what? If you still want to play Standard, Pioneer, and Modern, even Commander, I got something for you. Magic Online, the digital client that play all the paper formats. And you know what? You have access to all the cards in the entire card pool when you're renting with Mana Traders. You can support the channel using my Mana Traders link in the description below, or save 40% cash back. Get 40% cash back on your 3rd month subscription with Mana Traders if you use coupon code Nikachu_4VU. That's a good deal. Who doesn't like deals? Okay, back to Mental Misstep. Who doesn't like Mental Misstep? Money. Altered is brand new, I think. Oh, it's super brand new. If Star Wars flops, they'll probably put in Lorcana. That's funny. Give me a good laugh. Okay, Toilet Doc says, 1 Phyrexian mana is a perfectly fair mana cost. Print it! Where's the Coast R&D probably? Well, they did that with a few cards. We got Mental Misstep, Gut Shot, Mutagenic Growth, Gitaxian Probe. They made many of them. A lot of them being banned, to be honest. Okay, Mental Misstep. I know the reason it got banned in Legacy was because everyone would just play 4 copies of it, because there was a lot of 1-drops, and then to protect your 1-drops from Mental Misstep, you can Mental Misstep their Mental Misstep. So that is just the underlying nuisance of this card. Now, I'm gonna level with everyone. I hate this card in Vintage. When I was playing Vintage, I felt like it just couldn't hit anything. Like, what are the targets? Can I hit a Black Lotus? No. Because it doesn't say converted mana cost 1 or less. It's got to be 1. It literally needs to be 1. And there's not that many targets for it. I'm waiting. Brainstorm. Restricted. So only 1 copy. What else? Brainstorm's restricted. We went over that in the last format. This card rots in my hand so often. I feel like it's completely unnecessary. Yeah, you can hit Mental Misstep, but we still first need something on the stack. I can only hit your Mental Misstep if my Mental Misstep already hit some, or yeah, I can if your Mental Misstep already hit one of my 1-drops. Okay, we got White Border MTG. We got Ancestor Recall, which is a restricted card. Brainstorm Ponder, Deathrite Shaman, not played super heavily. Vampiric Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Vampire. I don't even know if either of those tutors are played super often. Vexing Bauble, yes, and Manifold Key. Manifold Key you can't even interact with if you look for it with Urza Saga. Urza Saga now restricted, by the way. There's not that many. Like, if you look at, like, Legacy, you look at Modern, there's tons of 1-drops. Like, the game revolves around 1-drops. Whereas in Vintage, there is not really not a whole lot of cards. Deathrite Shaman is played quite a bit. What are you talking about? Okay, maybe I'm a little rusty on MTG Goldfish. Maybe I'm rusty with the metagame. Last I played, which I admit was like a year ago, there was not many Deathrite Shamans out there. Or I should say, when I played against a Deathrite Shaman deck, it was like, like a 2 of in the deck. Like popular decks. Where's Vintage here? Because what deck plays it? Sultai. Okay, hold on. There's Sultai mid-range. Oh, there's four Deathrite Shamans in Sultai. Okay, I've been proven wrong. There's 4 Deathrite Shamans in Sultai mid-range. All right, I can Mental Misstep that damn thing. I guess it's important for anybody who's scared of Deathrite Shaman. Also, pitches to forces. There's a lot of cards that pitch to force. Everyone will still play 4. It pitches to force a will. I don't think that's a good argument. Anyway, the point I'm making is I think if you had access to 4 mental missteps, I think it would be really clunky. Honestly, I find it's even, I think even 1 is clunky in my deck. Every single time, when I was trying to build Merfolk in Vintage, I was like, do I take this thing out? It's like taking up a spot for absolutely nothing. If you can play 4, it's basically pre? What do you mean by that? Would mental misstep be fine if it said something like unless its controller pays? I have no idea what this payment is. Like if you make them pay something, then probably, because this was just a hard counter. If you can play 4, it's basically free. That is not true. There's definitely some cost. There's definitely some cost to your deck. I will tell you this: if there's literally no 1-drops in Vintage, it'd be pretty bad. But there are 1-drops in Vintage, and I'll admit there are still powerful 1-drops in Vintage. Ancestral Recall, you cannot let Ancestral Recall go. That is insane. So just having a little bit more access to a counter spell that can trade with either this or the tutors, of course, which are generally going to go get either a combo kill or Ancestral Recall, is worth it. Pitching to Force makes Lorien Reveal playable. That is Lorien Revealed, however, is always a land. That is a completely different discussion. Look, Mental Misstep in some matchups is dead. It does nothing, okay? It does absolutely nothing. It just has no target. It exists. I have felt the squeeze of Mental Misstep in my hand. Lorien Revealed is a different situation. Let's get Lorien Revealed up here. Lorien Revealed, at the very least, is like a land drop. And at best, it can draw you 3 cards. Lorien Revealed is actually awesome in Vintage because between Black Lotus and a bunch of extra mana from your mana crypts, it's actually really possible to just draw 3 cards randomly out of nowhere. It's beautiful. But Mental Misstep, when it's dead, it's dead. Like, you can't proactively use this at all. There are 0 decks where Mental Misstep has no targets. No, but what I'm saying is there are some decks that have very few targets. So if you have a bunch of Mental Missteps in your deck, and let's say I have 2 Mental Missteps in my hand, but then I trade it with one drop, say a Brainstorm. Then where's the second one? There are some matchups where, yeah, you have multiple Mental Missteps. It's gonna be beautiful. You can't use this versus Cascade. Remember, well, anyway, I don't know if Cascade even exists in Vintage. Remember, it's counter target spell with converted mana cost 1. Minding the misstep might make games cautious. I mean, you know what? I'll give it to you all. If you got 4 mental misstep in your deck, it increases the chances that you'll have a target. If everyone gets to play with four mental missteps. Misstep is why it's restricted. Let's look this up. I want to see. Let's see if a mental misstep is restricted. What's the real reason I don't know how long it's been restricted. The hell? Mental misstep is banned? Oh no, I don't think this is for Vintage. Mental misstep is restricted in Vintage. Oh, was this as recent as 2019? Mental Misstep has been a controversial card among the Vintage community for years. While it does provide more opportunity for interaction, it is also at its strongest against the most interactive decks. Moreover, a large part of the reason for including Mental Misstep is to fight an opponent's Mental Misstep. This creates a situation where many decks are taxed deck slots they must devote to fighting each other at the expense of weakening themselves against shops. You hear that? There is an opportunity cost to playing Mental Misstep in your deck. I told you. See, if you put a lot of Mental Missteps in your deck, you weaken yourself versus other decks that do not give a snot about Mental Misstep. Okay. In addition, dredge decks often use Mental Misstep to protect their graveyard engine or disrupt opponents. Ah, yes. Try to bring Grafdigger's Cage versus a Mental Misstep deck. You'll be super sad. We believe that restricting Mental Misstep will open up more deck building diversity, strengthen interactive decks matchups against shops, and weaken Dredge. Since our philosophy is that Vintage should be about playing with access to all of Magic, we periodically re-examine blah, 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 blah. Okay, what it basically said is, it's fine. Like, it's just annoying, but it's basically fine. It is very Vintage power level. That is what I'm getting with this. It is just more of a nuisance. It's like mental misstepping for the sake of mental misstepping someone else's mental misstep. Because that's the only way you're going to have targets. And then, of course, there's going to be a lot of decks. They're not going to have it. There's no targets for it. Although I don't understand why it's such a big deal that Mental Misstep can misstep a Grafdigger's Cage against a Dredge deck when you should have your own Mental Misstep to beat their Mental Misstep. Bolt my bird! No, no, no. Because you will counter almost anything they could play on turn 1 unless it's 0 mana. But there's a lot of 0 mana cards! Like that's the thing. Vintage has like a lot of Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Black Lotus, Mox Ruby, Mox Sapphire, Mox Pearl, Mox Emerald, Mox Jet. What else is for 0 mana? And the idea of those cards is to ramp into the 2-drops, your 3-drops. Like that's the whole damn point. Anyway, I felt the month or so that I played with Mental Misstep, I really felt the squeeze on this card. Like I just didn't have like hardly any targets. It was clearly the card I cited out the most. Cage and Pithing Needle. What do you need Pithing Needle for Dredge for? Oh, to hit the Bazaar. It's clever. I never would have thought of that. How do we feel about Minor Misstep again? Well, the Minor Misstep is a nice card, but unfortunately, it costs mana. You gotta pay up that mana. Vintage, we don't want to pay nothing. We want everything for we spend 100 grand on our deck, so our spells cost nothing. That's how it works around here. Deathrite Shaman. Yeah, it can hit Deathrite Shaman. I heard that. Okay. I'm saying I still don't think this is that powerful. It's banned in Vintage for the same reason it's banned in Legacy. It's because it just homogenizes decks. It just homogenizes decks, but they're still decks. It's not like the Mental Misstep deck is taking over the format because every deck is a Mental Misstep deck. Merchant Scroll. This feels really weird. Homelands. A Homeland special. Arguably the most broken card to come out of Homelands. The bar is really low. We're super low here. I cast Valgavoth like 3 times in Vintage. I play sometimes. I pay mana sometimes. Well, the deal is we're going to pay some mana at some point. So Merchant Scroll, 2 mana, sorcery. Search your library for a blue instant or interrupt card. Reveal that card to all players and put it into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. So from a Legacy and Modern perspective, Pioneer perspective, Tutor, it's broken. It danger, okay? It absolute danger. It just basically gives you extra copies of cards that you already have in your deck. Instant or interrupt, it's gonna find, well, first it can always find Ancestral Recall, which I always found funny. So it can always, at the very least, go get Ancestral Recall, refill your hand to do more stuff. But it can go above and beyond that. It can go find combo cards. Maybe go Merchant Scroll into Intuit. Well, I really don't want to speak about what they use it for in Vintage. Sometimes High Tide. Is that a deck in Vintage still? Yeah, we can go get our Mental Misstep. Although that's really awkward, Steve Cooper, because this is at sorcery speed, so the opponent will know exactly what we're getting. Yeah, that is super awkward. Merchant Scroll. Although, you know what would be really funny? Somebody has Ancestral Recall for the purpose of playing it at the end of my turn. I go Merchant Scroll, and they're like, yeah, it resolves. I go get Mental Misstep and then pass, and they're like, oh god, what have I done? That'd be oh, that was for Legacy. Well, what do they use merchant? Okay, so we have an authority over here. Whiteboard or MTG. What do they use merchant scroll for in Vintage? Or is it just in the combo decks to make them more consistent? Because it's funny, when you're building a Vintage deck, you would think it's sort of like Commander. You think like everything is stock, but then after you throw in all the stock cards, like you got the Moxen and a Black Lotus and a Mana Crypt and Soul Ring and this and that, and you put all the tutors. Oh, I'm gonna put the Merchant Scroll and the Mystical Tutor. You start realizing you're squeezed on card slots. And then if you actually want to play a deck at the end, you gotta start throwing things away. And Merchant Scroll is sort of at the bottom of that pole of things that you absolutely need in your decks. Like, I don't think this card makes the those Sultai decks, do they? Gee, Goldfish. Let me just quickly look. So, for example, in the Sultai decks, Sultai mid-range, do they have a Merchant Scroll? They play with like Dig Through Time. I don't see Merchant Scroll, even though they have access. Even though they play things like Brainstorm, Ancestral, well, especially Ancestral Recall. You can even play Merchant Scroll to go get your Dig Through Time if you really need to. Sees basically no Legacy play, maybe in High Tide. Oh yeah, that's true, actually. That's funny. Sees no play in Legacy. I actually, by default, just thought this card was banned in Legacy, because almost every tutor is banned. This one's the fair tutor. It's not banned yet. Doomsday. What do they get from Doomsday? Well, you can't get Tinker. Or is it just car or well, Tinker's restricted too. I don't know its purpose. Come on, I'm gonna go look at a Tinker deck. Quickly take a look. Blue Tinker. What would they want to go get? Because you can't get things like Time Walk, or you can't get any of the good sorcery speed level cards. You can't even get Tinker. You can't get Tinker. You can go get a Force of Will, I guess, to protect your combo. Do they use it against? I mean, in general, I think that is by default like one of the de facto things you can do with a Merchant Scroll. You Merchant Scroll, go get Ancestral. Like it increases your like decent top decks. So Merchant Scroll is effectively Ancestral Recall. Chain of Vapor, Consult Recall. Oh yeah, Chain of Vapor. All right. You need to deal with some combo. You need to deal with some problematic permanents. You go Chain of Vapor it. Okay, so Merchant Scroll. Interesting that's still restricted though. Doesn't seem completely broken. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe the more Merchant Scrolls in your deck, the more Ancestral Recalls. The more Ancestral Recalls, the bigger the problem. All right, I will still say it's one of the softer cards though. This is not an overall broken card. I mean, it's from Homelands, for crying out loud. Homelands. Not even banned in Legacy. Not even close to banned. Okay, next up. We go from Merchant Scroll to Mind's Desire. This is a card that just got unbanned in Legacy. This goes to show how not so broken this card is. 6 mana, sorcery. Shuffle your library, then remove the top card of your library from the game. Until end of turn, you may play it as though it were in your hand without paying its mana cost. And it has, of course, Storm. Now, it sounds scary, but truth be told, I think they unbanned this thing in Legacy because there's already a lot of cards that had a very similar effect as this. Where you if you have Storm, you can exile that many cards from the top of your deck, and you can play them until end of turn, or play them on your next turn, or something like that. So I don't see how this is a whole lot different than those other cards. This card is crazy! It's absolutely crazy! Bastock Republic says, then it becomes 3 mana to draw 3. But you know what? If you're top decking, so they're talking about Merchant Scroll, if you're in the late game and you're just top decking, that's fine. Like, you know, you might have 6, 7 mana just lying around doing nothing, just sitting like a bump on the log. You'll be happy to Merchant Scroll into your Ancestral Recall, even at 3 mana. After all, like, what's it called? Lorien Revealed is 5 mana. It's like a 5 mana Ancestral Recall, which is very playable in Vintage. Super playable. You better play it after a mental misstep or mental misstep. Storm. Christopher B says, did the existence of the likes of Flusterstorm and Mindbreak Trap have any effect on this thing's ban-worthiness? Maybe. Maybe. Like, Mindbreak Trap and Flusterstorm are around for a very, very, very long time. I don't think I was around when they banned Mind's Desire like a million years ago, but maybe that something like that happened. Like, over time, Flusterstorm got printed. It was high in supply. And we also have so many anti-combo cards these days that Mind's Desire is a way less impactful spell than it was before. Not like I understand why this is probably insane in Vintage, because once you start going off, this will if you get one copy of this, like this, it's basically GG because of the free spells. Like in Legacy, you don't have access to Mox as much, like Mox and like power, but you do in Vintage. So if you Storm and then you get like a billion cards off the top of your deck, well, a lot of those cards are going to be like free artifact mana, which helps you chain into your next Mind's Desire, So I would say the card pool of Legacy makes this card more fair, but the card pool of Vintage makes this card absolutely insane. Great in Cube Storm. Oh yes, Cube proving how strong cards are. Plus with Vampiric Mystical Tutor and Citadel, it's not that hard to sort of stack the top of your deck. True story. So you basically have extra copies of Mind's Desire, even with the tutors. It's a very Commander-esque strategy, I might say, Whiteboarder MTG. Very Commander-esque. Mind's Desire has to be restricted to the Mox and Storm capability. Yeah, so now I'm thinking about it, like, if you have access to, like, unlimited numbers of Mind's Desire, plus the tutors, it's like, it's impossible to brick on this. You'd have to always start your hand almost with Mind's Desire, effectively. Vexing Bauble, a more recent release for Vintage. Oh yeah, Vexing Bauble. There's like a lot of hate cards for Storm. But I mean, I've died to these Mind's Desire decks before in just like one shot. They just have like a really, I like Mulligan of 6, Mulligan of 5. All right, well, I hope my opponent's not on Storm. Then they go like Lion's Eye Diamond, Petal, this, that, Crack, Sack, Ancestral Recall, Mind's Desire. Uh-oh, this is not good. And of course, these cards are removed from the game, so you can still play like I believe they play LED because these cards are removed from. Oh, but this is the only card that plays this. Some versions of Storm, I believe, play with LED at the very least. Sorry, my Vintage meta takes are very outdated. Super, super, super outdated. I played for a little while. I had fun. Then I went into retirement. To be honest, I started playing. You want to know? You want to know my Vintage origin story? I was playing Vintage Cube, and I always draft a blue deck, and I was getting frustrated. I wasn't opening any power. So what did I do? I just said, screw it. I'm just gonna play Vintage. Like, I can start my deck with all the power in my deck. Like, this is genius. I'm so smart. Mind's Desire is a one-trick pony. Oh, interesting. Had fun, realized the price of Vintage decks, and went into debt. Well, on Magic Online, it's like nothing. I think a Black Lotus is like $3 or something. I don't remember. Maybe it's $10, but it's like really cheap. Moxen are like $3. Again, like this is like a year ago. I don't know what the prices of the Moxen are by today's standards, but it's not that expensive. Like, it's not going to break your bank. And of course, if you're renting with Mana Traders, it doesn't even matter at all. The art is what I dreamed last night. Oh, that's a dream, huh? Ooh, this is sort of a merfolk in this image. The design on this card is crazy. What the hell is that thing in the right of the corner? In the right over here? Some sort of octopus squiddy thing. There's like a fairy over here. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know. I also don't know. Oh, on the right on the corner? Has to be at the bottom right? Don't know. We never will know. Okay, I will say, for the purposes of Vintage, the card's probably broken. Probably. probably broken. Okay, next up, let's take a look at... Mine's a Monastery Mentor. Get out of here. Shut the hell up. Monastery Mentor is restricted? Why? Why? This card is jank, garbage. I don't understand. It's been reprinted. It's reprinted because it's useless. Here's the original one. I don't get this. Beanpaw says, I don't know why people complain about vintage prices. You can build Dredge for only, yeah, for only $12,000. And that's a budget deck. Would Luris qualify? The only card banned in vintage? It was, no, that it wouldn't qualify because that card got errated. The old Luris got banned. Moxen making 1/1s is pretty cracked. Sure, but it's still a 3 mana creature. Counter the damn thing. Is it any more cracked than a Storm deck? Let's tinker out a Blightsteel. Honestly, maybe the Monastery Mentor could hold its own versus the Blightsteel. Nika Cust, is that on the bingo card? Did I say damn? Damn doesn't feel like a very harsh cuss to me. Anyway, 3 mana for a 2/2. Prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. But that's not all. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 white monk creature token with prowess onto the battlefield. Speak little, do much. I think that's an absolute lie. This card speaks a lot, and that's how it does so much. If the Monster Mentor player just sits there and does nothing, you know, basically it's just dead silent, never casts a spell, this card does nothing. But between Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, this card's worthless. This card has seen play in Modern. It has seen play in Legacy. It's had its time in the sun. It's just too crap. It's just too much crap. It's too hard to enable. It dies on the spot. There might have been a time where like there wasn't as much efficient or removal, but now we have like literally everything for removal. And also the 1/1s that are in play, I would say before Magic became Haymaker Magic for the non-rotating formats, the 1/1s, they were worth something. You know, in a world where you're fighting between Monastery Swift Spears and Delver of Secrets, those tiny little things, they were dangerous. But like, damn it, you could die to a Mind's Desire these days. Where's the mind? You could die to this in one shot. Remember all those zero-cost artifacts? Remember Repeal? Oh, yeah. You have to remember this is a format with Breach and Yogg Will. Look, if I'm going to die to a Monastery Mentor, what's wrong with that? I can't even die immediately. This has summoning sickness, right? Am I right or am I wrong, fellas? Coffee Crew, tell me. Even if I could grind through my entire deck and put 40 power on the battlefield, can I even win on that turn? Answer is absolutely not. You cannot win with this damn card. If Paradoxical Outcome decks can kill me in turn 1 or in 1 turn. No, I'm definitely not debating that. The third of only 3 creatures on the list. Yeah, I guess. Is it? This is the third creature. I guess we have to give it haste. Okay, now I'm gonna look up why the hell this card got banned. Or sorry, restricted. Monastery Mentor restricted in Vintage. What happened? Monastery Mentor has been restricted since August of 2017. Oh, it's been a hot minute. As being the universal finisher for blue decks, Mox Emerald has been restricted since 1994. Well, I don't care about that. The Lonely Mentor. Anyway. Mentor was still great even with the vintage restrictions. They just limited Mentor, which has forced it to be combined with other win cons. Okay, whatever. I think this is a ridiculous card. But yeah, Swiss Spear has haste. The monster Swiss Spear has haste. The Mentor. The teacher to the swift spear does not. Slow, but cunning. It's actually surprisingly strong in Vintage as it attacks the format from a different direction than most other decks. Oh, you mean the battlefield? Yeah, it attacks it in the most traditional way possible. You know, that if Monastery Mentor is broken because it's trying to turn creatures sideways to inflict damage on the opponent, it's funny how, you know, if you're trying to storm off, that's fair and fine. But if you're trying to attack on the battlefield, somehow in this format, that's broken. We've got to restrict this card. Get it restricted. Creatures are too strong for this format. There's no removal. I mean, I can see that argument. If you don't counter this thing, like, who's the hell is going to have removal in this format? Dockside doesn't see play. This is Vintage. It has to happen on the stack. Yeah. The thing sneaks in underneath the stack. Oh god, we're dead. I would say that's a deck building problem. That's a deck building error. Okay, I think this card, it's a funny card. It's very funny. I love that comment. Strong because it attacks the format from a different direction. You made it sound like that's some sort of like unique, bizarre thing. When in reality, that is just the standard way to win a game of Magic the Gathering in every other format. But to Vintage players, this is alien. What is this? A creature? I have to look this up. What is the attack step? Blockers? I have to have creatures in my deck to block this thing. I don't have any of those. Anyway, I think it is not powerful. It is very not even with what's it called? Even with all the mocks and all the 0-mana artifacts, I still don't think this is that broken. Is it a stronger card in this format? Absolutely. Play sweepers. Of course, they don't play sweepers because, again, it's attacking on an angle that they're not prepared for. Yeah, what is this Doomblade you speak of? Although, to be honest, Doomblade would be bad value. But, again, like, if you played with literal board wipes, this card does nothing. It's like, okay, Monastery Mentor, pass the turn. You can even make a bunch of tokens, pass the turn. Okay, board wipe. Nice Monastery Mentor. I guess those are just tools that are just really weird to have in this format. You might need a global to deal with it if you are tapped out when they cast it, and even if you do have removal, they still get one monk token. Well, if it's 1 or 1 spot removal, that's bad. That's how Mentor beats you, because even if there's like a little bit of a counter war to protect it, they're always getting value no matter what. Massacre? That'd be hilarious to see that in Vintage. Probably wouldn't. It may not mean enough because they could play enough spells and because all the creatures have prowess, right? So they might actually buff up the creatures to the point they get out of the range of Massacre. Is Nadu restricted? I don't think so. I don't know if there's a Nadu metagame. Yeah, it inflicts combat damage at danger. Anyway, I think this card is ridiculously fair on the entire map of cards that are on the restricted list. And frankly, the Vintage players, they should suck it up. They should suck up Monastery Mentor and head it face on. It's just like all those other cards. Like Lodestone Golem. They don't want to play against Lodestone Golem because it makes they're not prepared for Lodestone Golem. But be prepared for Monastery Mentor. Okay, that's it for today. We're gonna look at more restricted Vintage cards in the future. But, you know, there's always another day. If you want to be part of the show, you got to be here at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Thanks to everyone who supports the show. If you're a patron on Patreon, a member on YouTube, or you super chat to be part of the show, or even super chat so other people are part of the show. And thank you so much, my coffee crew, for being here today. Oh, huge shout out to Whiteboarder MTG. We're giving us some insight on the Vintage metagame. And thanks to everyone who shows up, like Some Pleb and Hunter Strong, Kevin for Ginka, Steve Cooper. We got Trip, Bell, Old Boy, Blacklands Geo, Trip Fontaine, Ron L, Jess Toads, the Big Squig, because you guys are the coffee crew. You're the ones who make the show what it is today and every other day. So as usual, my coffee crew, keep brewing up them coffees, and we will keep brewing up the magic. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you at the next cup.